of the conference is Justice and War Today, which I will chair. Our first speaker is Most Reverend Professor Jean-Olivier ONGONO, who is a Roman Catholic priest from Ludwig-Maximilian University in Munich. The title of his lecture is Reconstruction of the Great Caliphate, Religious War or Mere Scramble for Resources, the Appropriate Response of the Church, Civil Societies and States. The floor is yours.
Dear panelists, ladies and gentlemen, I will share with you some thoughts on the topic you can see on my presentation there on the PowerPoint. And the underlying question in this topic is the Great Caliphate, is Reconstruction, is it a religious war or merely a scramble for natural resources? Voice since the early 2000s, the ambition to rebuild the Great Caliphate has unleashed a wave of violence and suffering across Nigeria, northern Cameroon, parts of Niger, and Chad. This forgotten crisis causes great distress to millions of people and regularly takes the lives of many civilians and military personnel. I will delve into the complexities surrounding this crisis, examining the authenticity, nature, and feasibility of Boko Haram's proclaimed project, particularly in light of the region's diverse religious landscape. I will further discuss the multifaceted response required from the Church, civil society, and states. Some primarily considerations, two of them. The first about the name Boko Haram itself. The name Haram is usually translated as Western education is forbidden. Haram is an Arabic word meaning forbidden, and Boko is a Hausa word meaning fake, used to refer to secular Western education. However, in 2009, in a statement, the group denounced this translation as the work of the infidel media, claiming that the true translation is Western civilization is forbidden. They explained that the group is not opposed to Western formal education per se, but believes in the supremacy of Islamic culture. Beside this common appellation, the group is officially known as Group of the People of Sunnah for Dawah and Jihad. Therefore, its initial main goal is to purify, meaning to spread Sunni Islam. The second point under the primary considerations is the Kanem-Bornu Empire or the Great Caliphate. It was founded in the 9th century, and this empire reached its apogee in the 12th and 13th centuries. At its peak, the empire covered an area of around 1 million square kilometers. Its borders fluctuated over time, but generally encompassed parts of Chad, Cameroon, Nigeria, Niger, southern Libya, and Sudan. Originally an animist empire, the Kanem-Bornu became an Islamic state following the conversion of its Rey Ummeh towards the end of the 11th century and grew to become a stronghold of Islam in the Sahara region. In the 19th century, the empire began to decline due to wars, invasions, and internal revolts. The arrival of European colonizers towards the end of the 19th century brought its struggle for survival to an end with the final partition among the British, French, and Germans in 1902. Deconstructing the narrative. Boko Haram's assertion of its intent to re-establish the Muslim Kanem-Bornu Empire invites some critical questions. I will name just the first three. Is it a religious war? That is it a genuine pursuit of religious or historical restoration? Or does it mask a more pragmatic, perhaps even cynical, scramble for resources and power in a region plagued by socio-economic issues? The second one, is it a political insurrection against a backdrop of social unrest? And how does it express it? Third question, if it is a struggle founded on religious motives, does it fall within the criteria of the just war? I will skip this second point on the just war theory. We have heard a lot about it. How to understand Boko Haram's armed struggle. Here I will underline 3 points, basically. The Kanem-Bornu Empire was undoubtedly important for trade and was a significant stronghold for Islam under the Sahara. Its legacy is still evident in the cultural and religious fabric of the Lake Chad region today. However, accepting Boko Haram's narrative at face value overlooks, according to me, several critical factors. The first, the contemporary religious landscape. The regions that were once part of the Kanem-Bornu Empire are characterized today by a complex interplay of religious and ethnic identities. While Islam has a long-standing presence, these areas are also home to significant Christian communities and adherents of ATR, African traditional religions, so the animist. The idea of imposing a single religious caliphate on this diverse modern reality is not only anachronistic, but also divisive and likely to lead to perpetual conflict. The second is the modus operandi of Boko Haram, which is marked by indiscriminate violence targeting civilians and all faiths, including Muslims who do not subscribe to their ideology, kidnapping, and the destruction of religious and secular infrastructure. And this casts serious doubt on the idea that their motivation is purely religious. These tactics are more indicative of a group seeking to control, a group seeking resources, and intent on generating fear than of those genuinely seeking to restore a historical religious entity based on principles of justice and governance. The third point is the socio-economic desperation and governance deficits. The rise of Boko Haram cannot be separated from the pervasive poverty, lack of economic opportunities, environmental degradation, notably the shrinking of the Lake Chad, and governance deficits that plague the region. These underlying conditions create fertile ground for extremist narratives to take root, offering a simplistic answer to complex socio-economic problems. Therefore, while religious rhetoric is a potent part of Boko Haram's identity and recruitment strategy, it is also important to analyze the conflict through a lens that recognizes the powerful undercurrents of resource competition, political opportunism, and exploitation of existing vulnerabilities. The reconstruction of the Caliphate may be more of a potent ideological tool than a historically or religiously authentic end goal. The third part of my brief presentation is on the imperative of a multifaceted response. Addressing a challenge as complex as the Boko Haram crisis and its stated aims requires a coordinated and nuanced response that goes beyond purely military solutions, pious preaching, and sterile political promises. The key question is how to promote a real and lasting peace in the face of the security threat posed by Boko Haram. Churches, civil society organizations, and states each have distinct yet complementary roles to play. What can the states offer? I underline 5 points. The first is the duty of the state to see to the security and the rule of law. The second, addressing the root causes. The third, regional cooperation as it concerns more than one country. I think there are 6 countries where Boko Haram is present. The fourth, de-radicalization and reintegration. And the last one, promoting social justice. And I would like to say something on promoting social justice briefly. From the 1960s to the present day, countries in the region have experienced political violence and economic crisis. These chronic political instabilities, coupled with climate crisis, I mentioned the shrinking of Lake Chad. It is now 1/3 of what it used to be a century ago, and that has a great impact on the population there. These chronic political instabilities have undermined all initiatives aimed at improving the living conditions of local populations. This situation has been exacerbated by opaque resource management and the implementation of structural adjustment plans in most countries during the 1980s and 90s. Ultimately, this has resulted in mass unemployment and discredited public action. It is in this context that Mohamed Yusuf, the founder of Boko Haram, emerged in Yobe State in northern Nigeria in the early 2000s. Therefore, it cannot be denied that the outbreak of the Boko Haram crisis is an insurrection against autocracy. Indeed, lack of perspective and despair seem to be the continued fate of the population in that region. Now, what could be the role of the church? Here I underlined 4 possibilities for the church. Firstly, promoting peace and reconciliation. Secondly, advocacy and prophetic witness from the church. Education for peace. And fourthly, providing humanitarian assistance. On promoting peace and reconciliation, I would like to underline something. Although the Catholic Church does not represent the absolute majority of people living in this territory, Catholics as well as believers from other communities and religions, and even non-believers, still lend considerable weight to the voice of the Catholic Church, to whom cultural respect is owed, cultural respect is given. In this context, a lack of concrete action from the Episcopal conferences will not be tolerated. At best, it will be seen as cowardice, at worst, complicity. Diocesan, regional, and national commissions for justice and peace can play an important role in teaching and transmitting the interconnectedness of peace and justice. Lastly, the role of civil societies. Here too, I did underline 5 points. The first, early warning and conflict prevention. Secondly, monitoring human rights. Thirdly, community resilience. Fourthly, amplifying local voices. Lastly, reconciliation between post-conflict societies. And now I go to my conclusion. Boko Haram's desire to reconstruct the Great Caliphate presents a dangerous and destabilizing agenda for a region already grappling with immense challenges. While the historical and religious dimensions of this narrative cannot be entirely dismissed, deeper analysis suggests it is merely a veneer for a complex conflict driven by resource competition, governance failures, and socio-economic desperation. The historical fact that a particular ethnic or religious group once occupied a land which was lost in the course of history for various reasons cannot be invoked as the only ground to justify the use of violence or terror to reconquer it by self-proclaimed heirs, whether biological, ideological, or religious. Concerted efforts from states, churches, and civil societies are indispensable. Therefore, a sustainable resolution of the Boko Haram crisis requires more than just a military victory. It requires a holistic approach that addresses the root causes of the crisis, promotes justice and reconciliation, and ensures the dignity and security of all individuals and communities. The path ahead is arduous, but with collective determination and a multifaceted strategy, a just and lasting peace can be achieved. To the twofold question, is this crisis a religious war? And could it be termed just war? Too many factors cast doubts on it being a mere religious struggle. Above all the various just war theories, the ultimate truth about war and violence should be that espoused by Pope Francis. No war is justified. War cannot be the ultimate solution. In effect, and I end with that, quoting La Civiltà Cattolica, today, Christian conscience must address the issue of war in a fundamentally different manner to that of the past. War cannot be waged according to the criteria required for it to be considered just. These criteria are unattainable because modern warfare is by its very nature brutal. It always causes damage that far exceeds any potential benefits in terms of justice and law, and tends to inflict far more serious damage on the enemy than the good that will make the war just. Thank you.